Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. Guys, as you can see, this particular session, we have obviously this is around uh, design, strategy, and innovation. So, design is clearly the new management, and in that, market research shows there is a significant demand for training in design, strategy, and innovation for both for design and non-design professionals, and that's why we have conducted the Mind Leaders Lives. So the idea of having Mind Leaders Live was to, as you can see, over the last 90 days, we have had more than 8,000 people on our website and social media platforms, 3,000 plus people who had registered for the seven super inspiring episodes that we conducted, where we invited global design leaders from across the globe to talk about the importance of design and innovation in their lives, in their projects, and especially in uncertain times like these. And we have had 800 plus applications for the program from 100 plus cities across the globe. That was quite overwhelming and surprising for us. And so now I'll like move on to a quick, say, introduction or a quick comment by Mr. Subrat Mohanty, who is the group president of Manipal Education and Medical Group. He said, design is the fundamental element of planning and strategy for every business. Ultimately, it's good design, be it product, experience, or technology, that truly differentiates one organization from another, or maybe a product from another. And Mind aims to offer programs that will power up a candidate's imagination and enable them to apply design to every aspect of life to create impact. So if you see MIND, which stands for Manipal Innovation and Design, is being launched by Manipal Global Education Services in partnership with Spread Design and Innovation. So Manipal Global Education, as you can see, is a leader in education services, providing customized, flexible learning and assessment solutions powered by technology, innovation, and passion. Pioneers in world-class education, the Manipal Group runs 3 universities in India, 5 international campuses, 80 plus countries represented by students, and over 4 lakh active students from across the globe. Spread Design Innovation is a global consultancy and transdisciplinary design practice. As a partner to global enterprise institutions, policymakers, businesses, and startups, Spread helps in shaping the future with deep tech knowledge and design sense. Spread has over 25 years of experience in designing national and global businesses and brands, transformational strategies, and human-centric experiences, using design as a strategy and tool to decode future shifts. So build, design, build, spread is our more like a tagline that we use, and the motto, as you can see on the screen. And now I'll come to our speaker of the day, Sonia Manchanda, who is a creative game changer, creator of a global open innovation project. Sonia is a designpreneur who has set up more than one radical design company, leading massive business, brands, and experience design projects nationally and globally. She is founding partner at Spread Design Innovation, a firm on sustainable farm and design barn, the first ever huge and independent design incubation center in the country. She's also a member of the India Design Council and creative lead at Mind. So with this, I would give it back to Sonia to continue with the session. And towards the end of the session, we'll be happy to engage with you. Over to you, Sonia.
Thank you, Shweta. Good morning, everyone. It's really nice to meet you. And if you're here, there's a reason why you're here, because we are in a strange time and we have really only 2 choices. One is to sort of stagnate, and the other is to self-disrupt. And it is about self-disruption that we'll be talking. We'll be talking about how you can go from being a visualizer or an art director to somebody who can be a visionary. And I speak from experience because I myself am a graduate of the National Institute of Design. And I set up one after the other over many years, 3 different design organizations, and was involved in a very to actually not just design brands, but to design businesses, experiences, paradigms, global movements, And design can help you do all of that. So what we've done here is try to see how we can take the best from design, from innovation, from the creative space, from the entrepreneurial space, to actually make you into bold and fearless leaders who have the ability to respond. I think in the present moment, the ability to respond is the most important thing. You know, we've talked about, and the World Economic Forum, for instance, talks about the fourth industrial revolution. Now it is upon us. Technology has been changing our lives in completely different sort of ways. On top of that, now we have this pandemic. As it is, this whole age of technology is supposed to be both an opportunity and a huge risk. So it's always balancing that, the opportunity and the risk. That's what our life is all about, you know. And right now, more so, when there is so much risk, how do you adapt? How do you survive? And how do you thrive? You know, it's a question of sort of embracing a different mindset. It's a question of freeing up your mind to be able to respond. And I thought we should talk to you a little bit about that, about how do you respond. Let me share a few slides with you. They're colorful, they're joyful, and maybe they'll help you absorb the ideas much better. Yeah, so my first wish for you this morning is that you should get, you know, these dragonfly eyes. They can see in ultra multicolor. Did you know that while human beings see tricolor, dragonflies see in ultra multicolor, which is 11 to 50 colors? So they have an acute sensitivity and a vivid understanding of the world around them, besides which they see 360 degrees. Each of the eyes has 30,000 facets. Now, nature did not gift us these eyes, but it gave us the wisdom to develop them. It gave us the wisdom to develop acute sensitivity, which is what we're talking about. So, my wish for you is that you're able to look around you and not sort of have a tip of the nose perspective where you can only see this much. And you think the skill and the work that I've done is good enough. Why can't the world see me for what I am? But be someone who's constantly immersed in reality, looking out at possibilities. You are an optimist and a skeptic. Being both is very, very important. So I'm hoping you will, well, not look like this gentleman here who's standing on the eyeball, but, you know, conceptually in metaphors, that's what it means. It's the ability to have acute sensitivity. Let me tell you, I'm going to tell you three stories if you stick around. And the first story is about this hospital in Simla. Everybody here is from India, so you know Simla. And this was built by the British. It was made of wood with only one road leading up to it. One night, the hospital caught fire. Every year, a building gets burned down in Simla, so that's not surprising. But it caught fire, and the commanding officer had to take quick calls without consulting anyone really. So the calls that were taken were: one, break the connections between the various buildings so that the fire does not spread. Roll all the inflammables down the hill because it's perched on the side of a hill. Roll it down the hill, including the vehicles that would block the way. Just roll everything down. No need to consult anyone. Loss to property, too bad. Can't help it. Let's do this. And then all the oxygen cylinders, etc., were also sort of rolled out. And the patients were brought out onto the road in beds in the middle of a snowy night on the road leading up to the hospital. So all these decisions were taken by this commanding officer, who initially was not sort of respected for it. The loss of property was what was talked about. And finally, this commanding officer was my mother, who was creatively inclined. She received a promotion and awards for it because she knew how to respond in that moment of crisis. Look at our world today. It's in a moment of crisis. And I can tell you from my own experience, my mother was somebody creative. She liked the charisma of the army, and that's why she joined it, you know. And maybe her creative ability, her practice, there's a lot of practice, there's a lot of sort of involvement that you need to put in to reach this moment of crisis where you can respond. How do we respond? What happens apparently, we believe that we want our day to go straight like this. We want life to go on as usual. We want to preserve the status quo. That's what we think, right? But it's not exactly like that. Actually, apparently, and you should read this guy's work. He talks about Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi talks about that contrary to what we believe, the best moments in our life are not passive, receptive, relaxing. It's when our bodies or minds are stretched to the limits. So while we did not get 360-degree eyes, we got a mind that wants to be pushed. It wants to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. So these are just your gamma rays. You're happiest when you're challenged. And within a challenge, you can give up when there's a low moment. You feel sad in the course of a day. When you take on a challenge, it's typically a lonely journey. You will feel sad. You're happier following orders. If you try to do something on your own, there's no one to ask, what do I do next? Okay, when you get into that scenario, it's typical to feel low and feel a little bit sad, feel a little bit challenged. But when you crack it, you feel like God. You go right on top. There's a crest. And your mind feels great, you feel healthier, you feel more beautiful, and all of that when you're able to do something independently and take it up. This could be a personal challenge. It could be, oh, I want to lose weight and I want to be fitter. It could be a challenge at work that you take on. All of it, it is a lonely journey. It's the hero's journey, which does have its low, but then takes you to a high. So creative response is what we are most tuned to. It's not about, yes, I'm an artist and I can be told what to do and I'll do it and I'll deliver it. I'm a coder, I'll code. It's about being able to take your own decisions and respond. And here, people have a very limited view of design. So I want to talk to you about our view of design that we have shared to be able to bridge the design gap, make it inclusive, and for everyone to be able to embrace design. At one level, design is about making things. And I'm talking of this as a way. The way yoga is a way to get fitter, I'm talking of this as a framework, which is what I'll come to next. Like Surya Namaskar is a way to exercise, it's a framework to apply to anything that you do. So design fundamentally is about making things, so something tangible, something you can hold in your hand, something you can experience. It could be an app, it could be a website, it could be anything, but it's about the experience, and sense is about being human. It's being able to shape new meaning for many more besides yourself. It could be only for yourself as well. But fundamentally, design, you have to view it, and that's how we viewed it in our country. We are the ones who created yoga. Look at some of our food. It actually makes human sense. It makes the human experience better. But then why don't we understand the way the West understands that design is a natural, adaptive sense that we can all have, a way to feel, think, and do. So it's not just about thinking, it's not just about doing, it's not about the skill. It's about the mind. It's about the mind challenging itself. And the mind will not challenge itself unless the heart feels something. So it's a heart, head, and hand thing. So let me talk about, this is the key takeaway for you here. Let me talk about the design sense framework evolved from 20 years of our work of developing, say, the experience in the metro stations in Rio, designing a lot of the retail that you see in the country, which is Central, Big Bazaar, Food Bazaar, a lot of education brands and experiences, and it comes from that. So it's something that we have fine-tuned over time, and that has been applied at, say, companies like Honeywell and various other big companies as well, to be able to go from a place of intent, which in Hindi we call niyat. How do you derive intent? For Gandhiji, if he had not worn the clothes of the common man and gone down to his or her level, he would not have realized that the biggest issue is a fundamental issue, something like salt. And if you want to get everyone to look beyond the tip of their nose, as I mentioned earlier, maybe you need to talk about the salt. And maybe you need to take something so fundamental to get the world's attention to what's going wrong in our country. You and I would not be free today if we had not actually gone down to the level of the common man and come up with this insight. So you go from a place of intent, you immerse, you step back. Even if you think, I know all the answers, yeah, we're all very smart, we know all the answers. But when you have a challenge, you step away and you step back and then go deep. It's like immersing in the Ganges. You actually go down into the water, you feel the temperature, you feel the pulse, you empathize and you understand what other people are feeling. It's not just your perspective. There are so many perspectives. So you feel, you get a moment of insight. Insight is the real truth. It's not what people are saying, it's not what's on the surface. You get a moment of insight. From that moment of insight, did you know what is the difference between everybody else who sees problems and entrepreneurs? The difference is that entrepreneurs can take a problem and flip it around as an opportunity. Did you know that it's something everyone can learn? That there's a framework to flip a problem into an opportunity that I guarantee you works all the time. So you reframe and you see the right frame, you see the problem in the right frame, you see it as an opportunity to then be able to ideate. We like to say, I have an idea. Everybody likes to say, oh, I have an idea. Fine, but where did that idea come from? And what is an idea? Did you know that an idea is connecting the dots of what already exists? Take a new trend, take a new technology, take a new social context, the fears and the aspirations of people, and connect them in a new way, and you have an idea. So, to be able to solve a challenge, you come up with an idea. Then, while you have an idea, let's go beyond the basic prototyping, making. You know all of that, right? But did you know that you need to be able to shape a larger picture? The biggest challenge we face sometimes when we have an idea is that you can see it, but other people can't. You need to be able to go beyond the output of what you're doing to what's going to be the outcome. Show people the shape of what's going to come. For that, you need a lot of imagination. You need to think futuristic and be able to create a scenario, illustrate a scenario, tell a story, build a new narrative. And then when you want to take a lot of people around, yes, you need to create a prototype that people can hold in their hands, experience, and react to and respond to, right? Once you make the prototype, you also need to be able to share a larger dream. And like the human swarm will come along with you if you're able to share a larger dream, to be able to create long-term and huge impact. So design really is about, or having design sense is about going from a place of authentic intent to creative action, continuously, repeatedly. And you cannot do that unless you're on top of what's going on socially. So if you just remember, sense is social, economic sentiment. Remember, they say market sentiment. What's going on in the natural world? What are the systems and experiences that are breaking and or shattering or responding? And how might we fix them or create new systems, experiences, environments? So really making design sense is about that. I hope this is a useful takeaway from you from this session, because we don't really believe in talking, okay? We really believe in acting. And so this is from our experience in acting that this comes from. Tina, you're asking, design thinking tells us not to think creatively. Not to think creatively. How to go about it? What design thinking does is design thinking is really a way of approaching problems in a human-centered way, which means that you start from a place of empathy. It's not so much what you think the problem might be, it's what other people feel the problem is. So it does not say don't think creatively, it says first empathize, first relate, first get deep into what the problem is. Then you will define the problem differently. And how to go about thinking creatively, I disagree that you should not think creatively. You have to think creatively. But how you think creatively is how you connect these dots of trends, technologies, and the social context. I'm not going to go deep into the second part of it, which is, which is the fact that in our projects and in your projects as well, you can look at using a metric to be able to make it more long term, to make your success more long term, which is what you're doing making a great deal of natural sense? Is it doing good to the environment? And I bring it up first because right now, this is a moment for us to pause and think far more meaningfully. And the new startups, the new ideas that are spreading are ones where we are suddenly aware of our natural systems and we're thinking about them. When I say human sense, are you thinking inclusively? Or are you thinking in this very narrow sort of way which is not inclusive? You want greater impact, think more inclusively. Don't have this 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 societal hierarchies that you've been taught in life. Break your own thinking, break your own mold. Economic sense, well, in today's context, you really have to think win-win for lot many more stakeholders. Cognitive sense, make sense of all the data around you. Use the latest technology. Make something which has beauty and truth in it. People can see through it. It's a transparent world. We are all connected thanks to technology. Everyone can see through. And the deepest of this lot is really this idea of evolutionary sense. Every morning when we wake up, we want something new. We want to be new, you know. And so when you touch that iPad for the first time, do you feel like not so much that, oh, what a great product? You feel you've changed. You're doing things in this altogether new way, and that is what when you create a solution, if you want people to be drawn to it, it's the whole experience. It's not just how beautiful it is. It's about, is it looking like, man, this is magic. All the technology is moved out of the way, everything else is moved out of the way, and this feels like magic. Premjit, you're asking how much of design sense and creative thinking is natural and how much can be learned. I think it is all learned. It's like algorithms. You can be creative, you may have ideas, but that's just one part of it. You may have a skill, but that's another part of it. But really training your mind, because at each stage of this, when you want to feel, when you want to immerse, you have to open up the funnel and let the ideas flow in. You have to be unjudgmental. And then you have to then train your mind to be judgmental and choose one idea and make a choice. Then open up again and let a lot of things come into your imagination. But then again, close it. So it's training your brain and training your mind to be able to be elastic so that it can open up and it can close again, and realize that this also takes you through emotional ups and downs. It's not easy to do this because you are creating a solution, a future, something artificial. Designers consider this art of creating something artificial because it's not something that existed before. Only that which is in the natural world is natural. What you're creating is something artificial, whether it's a product, service, or experience, and nobody's seen it. So it's not easy to actually carry it within you and bring it out there and have a lot of people embrace it, think like a startup founder. It's not an easy journey. So it's completely, you completely have to be trained for it and be playful with it. The minute you're too serious about it, it can be very stressful. If you do it playfully, the quality of your imagination is better, the quality of your thinking is better. And therefore, from a perspective of training, let's talk about grasping these eyes, and don't skip the steps. I've seen across projects and across so many challenges, when people skip the steps, they have to go back to the drawing board. And so start from a place of intent. If you genuinely don't want to solve a problem, don't even try solving it. So you have to start from a place of intent which is garnered from immersion, from immersing fully, engaging, empathizing, and feeling it in your bones. So when you feel, you get a moment of insight which allows you to frame the problem correctly. Only then should you go on to ideation, because the future is built on the flow of new ideas. You need a great deal of imagination to be able to show a whole scenario and be able to share it and have many more stakeholders believe in it, whether you mean policymakers, your boss, your parent, any one of them. You need to be able to show a scenario. And of course, to be able to make something today in the digital age, it's actually very forgiving. The online space is very forgiving. You can iterate, and make the experience better and better. Form, of course, follows function. If you're not really solving a problem, that's why there's a lot of debate around jugaad. We say jugaad is our biggest problem, but it's also our biggest opportunity. The fact that we can quick fix a problem is great, but if we leave it at that, we lose out in the global race. I don't know if anybody has seen the jugaad. I've actually seen the vehicle that inspires that, which is, I think, a motorcycle engine with a big trolley at the back, which goes all over the roads, and it's super dangerous. And yes, it can get you from place A to B, but no, it can't help you win in the global race. So that is the challenge. And so you need to iterate, and that's where craft comes in. And so both are important. Strategy is important, craft is important. And then to be able to share a big dream and share it, create a big dream and share it lucidly. On that score, let me also share with you an example from my own work where in 2010, I actually decided that, there's a lot we are sort of taught and fed and conditioned to believe. And we've always been conditioned to believe that design starts from people's needs and that's how it should be. But somewhere I felt that as somebody who's driving change, that maybe that's not the best way to think about something as powerful as design. Maybe that's not the best approach for innovators to take. So I created an open innovation and design research project. And in this project, there were, I think, 10,000 people involved, and young students traveled 25,000 kilometers across India to capture India's dreams. Because I had a hypothesis that when you start from people's dreams, you actually make aspirations bigger. You can involve people. You can create new business models and methods where people can actually aspire and grow, and society itself can become dynamic. So this wasn't sponsored, it was the will of people. It was all of these students, entrepreneurs, policymakers, industrialists, everyone coming together because we were able to communicate, share a big dream to actually go out there and find out what the world is dreaming about. And the methodology was adopted across, and I'm telling you this, that you can do this. You can design your own project, you can take up your own challenge. And I did this along with some really big projects I was doing. So it's about creating a scenario and creating a design system. And Premjit, again, further to answer your question, something like this needs training and a lot of practice. So because of the practice, I was able to design this system, take a lot of people along. Consequence, we were able to create solutions which actually point to a more dynamic society, which challenges the status quo, and the recognition that it received. And so, as a student, I traveled to New York, and I was not able to afford a copy of the magazine, The Metropolis. And I had a huge respect for this. Then I started saving up and buying The Metropolis regularly. When I did this project, somebody from Metropolis called up, and I had nothing to do with them, did not enter it in any awards or any of that. I was just doing my work with a great deal of intent. Called up and said, "Can we interview you?" And the next thing you know, Metropolis recognized the Dreamin project, which was my project, as one of 6 game changers in 2013. And if you see the others, it says Dreaming Up India's Future on their cover. And I had to go to New York to receive the award. All the others are retiring American designers and architects who receive that award for all of the work they've done. You don't have to wait till you're retiring to put forth your ideas. And that is why we are doing what we're doing now, because we want many, many, many more powerful leaders, especially in this moment when we need to create fresh value and meaning. So you see, it wasn't just the Metropolis. Bruce Nussbaum, who's written about design thinking, some of you seem to know about it, and he put it on the cover of Business Week, actually dedicated a whole chapter in his book, Creative Intelligence. And in any case, these are some of the books you must read. And there's a whole chapter on the project there. And these are some of the other books. And this went on. And you know, when you start doing these big things where you're leading as someone creative, you realize the power of design, you realize the power of creativity, the power of innovating and collaborating and creating these systems. So, as I said, dragonfly eyes, which means you look and you listen and you have acute sensitivity. You don't, even the wisest people, well, the wisest people are not the ones who think they're wise, but the wisest people are the ones who look and listen to others far more carefully. These are some of the dreams you had captured. How does this translate down to your everyday work, you may be asking? Okay, she's talking about these really big things. How does it translate down? So, as we realized, and as I realized in my work, that you know, these methods and frameworks that we have make everybody far more powerful, be it educationists, be it technologists, marketing people. We said, rather we didn't say, this started to happen. It started from the countrywide CEO or somebody very senior from Honeywell who read an article I'd written somewhere and said, "Can I come and meet your team and understand how you work?" And when he saw how we work, he said, "Can you help us create this kind of culture in our organization?" And then we worked, we had these workshops, they brought in our playful systems, which was very different from working seriously and just following all the various processes that they had. Yes, you follow process, but you take out time to play. You know, and you work playfully and without knowing that you've got a lot done. So we started developing these systems, methods, toolkits. And here's a smaller example. We applied it to a company called Hexaware, where they were developing a platform for patient engagement services. Somehow the team was stuck in thinking about it as just technology and not thinking about the human impact. So we spent some time with the team and brought them into our space, which is the design barn, which is where Shweta and I are just now. We brought them in. By the way, it is India's first independent design center to be able to bridge the design gap, but I'll tell you more about it later. So, so we actually spent some time with the team to help them humanize technology. So you see some of the people here, they are not designers. They are marketing folk, they are technologists, they are various disciplines. We brought in HR heads, L&D heads, people like that cross-functionally. And brought them and showed them new ways of working, where you sketch, you draw, you tell stories, you ideate, you co-create. It's a flat world. You think about experiences uh, and all of that, which is very, very different. It's a very different way of working. Everyone can benefit from it. So we brought them in, we did all of that. You see, they're sitting on the floor. In our space, we have this grassy mat. Whoever's in Bangalore, you must come and visit us as soon as you can, but stay safe. And we brought them in and we did this, spend this time with them to reach a place where whole new possibilities started opening up. They started seeing the product, they started seeing the service as a product, the product as a very humanized kind of bot or an angel who plays a difference in your life. So you see some of the things where they started thinking deeper about their user and what the user thinks and feels in the moment and how you can actually make a difference in their life. Suddenly there were these technologists who were thinking like change makers. I want to change this person's life. And this is a global product, and they were thinking far away into the lives of their users in America and how they would be thinking, telling stories about a day in their life to be able to imagine the future. And you see, so while we designed finally some of the experiences there, and we built a film to tell you the story of the what if scenario that gets created, the biggest difference was to the mind of the people. It was not just a mindset shift, it was a mindset free and imaginative and creative. And they would take away these ways of working that they would apply each and every time. Gone are those discussions where you sit in the room and it's who's the most senior and that voice is respected. It's none of that. It's about the user and the difference we can make together as change makers, as path breakers, as visionaries. Let me show you the What If film, which apparently created a big buzz for them. So you see, it's a scenario, it's a revolution. It's not just another piece of technology, it's the way you look at it. Another example from our work, and this is how I'm just showing you how we apply methods and the ways of designers, innovators into everyday work. We created a brand, and the brand was around the idea of healing you. So this was Vaidya Heal that we created as a brand. And we came up with this whole strategy around healing you, that patients, that healthcare should fundamentally be about healing people, right? So around that, we said, therefore, research and discovery and a dedication to that is very, very important. Hence, why don't we take their anatomy and pathology labs, which are boring places that today people don't go to, and because people, students feel that they can see everything online. So therefore, they're not committed to actually going there, studying, looking at the samples and understanding that, which is very, very fundamental. And so therefore, how do we make the dedication to the future of patient health much, much more? So we took some of these pieces and the library and all of that, and we put it together in a new way as a discovery place. So Vida means discovery in Sanskrit. So we made Vida the Vaidehi Discovery Museum, and we totally reimagined the learning experience. In this, we had to take along the medical team, because they had to tell us how we could use, how we could tell the stories better, much better than the online space. We had to take along technologists to be able to integrate technology, graphics, communication, all of that. For instance, when you go to a typical medical museum, when you want to study the child, you will see fetuses, and you will feel morbid when you see that. It's not a nice feeling. And after all, even students are, well, human. Medical students are also human. So instead, what if you had the same fetuses which were there and have to be shown and studied, and you put each fetus up and you take the 9-month journey and you make a film about each stage? So there is no morbidity. There's discovery. We were, after all born, right? So there is discovery about how we were at that stage. So it's changing the perspective, and changing the experience. Now the architect needs to think like this. The designer needs to think like this. The writer needs to think like this. The medical team needs to think like this. The people managing the space later need to think like this. So everybody needs to shift the way they think and have a new mind to be able to do this. And therefore, as we do this, we also must train up the people. Otherwise, they will kill the idea. So you see how the experience is different, how it looks like a global sort of landmark and museum that you want to visit. So there's a great use of technology. There's a lot of discovery. Discovery is a feeling. So we create this feeling collectively. The people who design this, the people who manage it. Okay, so this way of thinking applies to creating experiences. It applies to creating technologies. You know that now, right? What about larger aspects of life? What about social change? So this is one example. We've also done a lot of work with the national highways. We worked on the Commonwealth Games, but this is an example that is very, very precious to us, because this is a really genuine issue. The issue of farmer suicides in Karnataka is a very, very big issue. And what we were able to do is, with limited budgets, go from this go from building an understanding of a whole new category, create a whole new category. So the Karnataka agriculture minister had actually advised the subsistence farmers, the really poor farmers, to start to grow millets and turn to organics, because organics have a greater value realization. And millets are, did you know that before we were agriculturists, we were foragers? So it's our most natural food. So it doesn't need any fertilizer. It's very hardy. It's very good for us. But if I were to tell you today that, because there are a lot of farmer suicides, please eat millets, would you shift entirely to millets? I know you have a heart, but you are also intensely selfish. Each one of us is. That's the contradiction of being human. So if I can present a new argument to you that this is good for you, good for the planet, and good for the farmer, maybe we can do something. So it took us creating an event, creating a campaign, creating training systems for the farmers, and relentlessly working on it for a year, along with the entire department, and even training them up to think like this, to train the farmers like this, to be able to create really, really effective change. The results, I mean, it's like you could see the difference from no one knowing what the hell is millets to everyone endorsing it and saying, oh, you know what, it's the next gen smart food. And we made that shift happen, and it's gratifying to be able to make that shift happen. I won't show you pieces, I'll show you a film about a quick film, which is the case study on this project.
Year after year of drought, farmer desperation.
Karnataka has not traditionally been seen as a state with a large number of farmer suicides. There were 182 farmer suicides in July alone.
Krishna Bairagowda, Minister for Agriculture, Government of Karnataka, proposed a radical solution. Grow millets, as millets are climate smart. Turn to organics. Organic produce has higher value realization. A fresh argument and awareness had to be created to spread a movement. Let's millet, go organic. One bold step for an idea that's good for the farmer, good for the planet, and good for us. Then, an even bolder idea, turning the focus from superfoods to next-gen smart foods. The world of organics and millets received a unique welcome with a millet and organic bouquet from more than 100 millet heroes. The idea spread through the Heroes Network and through roadshows nationally and globally. Repetition over social networks grew audiences and engagement for the most inclusive global confluence, celebration, and catalyst, creating business and conscious consumption opportunities and massive impact. A unique event converging farmers, industries, influencers, consumers, and countries. A smarter way forward for a complex problem with a simple message. Let's millet, go organic. Let's embrace next-gen smart food.
So you see, when you want to make social impact as well, you need creativity and you need a leadership mindset. As you've seen in our work, we've actually sort of worked across the education sector, the health sector, various sectors. And you've also seen the Dreamin project. You've seen the whole sort of realization that we can create much larger impact as creative people on our own, not just within organizations, just by ourselves. So as Spread, we are an organization based on a sustainable farm. We believe that first you need to be able to change your own life before you actually go out and change the world. You know, much like Gandhiji. So we truly believe that. So we are a studio on a sustainable farm, but we also built what we call quite naturally the Design Barn. The Design Barn is an independent design center, which Navi Raju had said that he hopes that this place, and he thinks that this place will create a design revolution in India. And while you cannot right now visit the physical space, which is a big pity, yet I want to tell you about it and tell you about the energy that emanates from it. And the program that we've set up really comes directly out of that energy. In this place, in the first year of its inception, now we're heading towards the second year. In September, we finished 2 years. Was on its own. We don't do any advertising, but on its own for people getting excited about the fact that, you know, here we're seeing design at a large scale. We want to bridge the design gap. You can see all the companies, Google, Amazon, Accenture, everybody came forward and said, can we do something with you here? So everybody is done something or the other, and you'll see the formal and the informal moments in a film, and then we'll spend some time talking to you about the program, about what you want to do, and how you think you can be a creative leader.
When I saw this place, I have so many things happening in my mind.
I'm here at the Design Barn in Bengaluru, a great hall which houses in fact a lot of media events and activities. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Here I am doing a trip to India to come see this place with my own eyes, and didn't disappoint me. It's fabulous. It's an incredible place. It's super inspiring, and I'm hoping that this place will help launch a design revolution in India but also worldwide.
So born out of this and born out of the realization that actually we need to reach even beyond the Design Barn, connect with people globally, and actually empower them to be much more, we created Mind. So it's deliberately made of a rubber band. The idea is to be able to stretch your mind, expand it, to be able to give you the flexibility and the agility to respond, the ability to respond, as I said earlier, which is fundamental to what we are trying to do at Mind. So we've spent quite some time actually developing the curriculum. You can see really what we're doing here. We're actually going to go deeper into how you can make design a natural adaptive sense, how to understand, how to radically disrupt yourself, and even within the works, how to map shifts, how to be a forecaster, how to know what's going to come up. That's an amazing ability to have. And we help you develop that, how to ideate and prototype, how to design for customer experience, and to innovate for impact. The way the program that we're talking about is going to be broken up is that we stretch your thinking with new ideas, concepts, and practices. We help you flow through an entire project from problem to outcome. And that's actually the most interesting part of this, because this is the most industry-oriented program around creativity, design, innovation, and strategy that there is out there. I can tell you with great assurance that that's what this is all about. We also think that it's important, if you're going to be able to create impact, like you saw what we did with the millets or with Dreamin', that we expand your mind in a way with concepts that you wouldn't get elsewhere. be it circular economy, etc. We actually spend time doing that so that you can think about much, much, much larger impact. And of course, part of the jigsaw, or part of this entire, the way this has been put together, is that we have some incredible people who are part of this. I know this because a lot of these have been part of our network in many different ways, and we've brought them all in because we want them to add value to you. And we want them to give you, we want them to challenge you. So that's why we've got these dares that they have given us. And people want to sort of build up their network. And they think they should go to events to build up their networks. That's all nonsense. You build up your network when you work with someone. So in this case, what we do is the challenges are the dares, we call them dares. The dares come directly from these incredible people who are, say, Kaleem Kamboj, who's been teaching at Parsons School of Design in New York for the last 20 years. And he's an incredible person. I feel very, very selfish about him, and I don't really want to share him with you, but I'm sharing him. You have Dr. Emma Jeffries, who's actually traveled, worked within different kinds of organizations. And she came to study us, so she worked with us to understand deeply and write about design and innovation happening in various places. Yu Kai Chao has written the book on gamification. He's incredible. He has an amazing Octalysis framework we should look at in any case. So we have all of these people. We have Microsoft. We have Sonal Dabral. For those of you in advertising, you must know about him. We have Avnish Sabharwal from Accenture. We have the innovation head, innovation and design strategy head of the Bangalore International Airport, who's also on many global councils. He's given us this challenge of redesigning mobility. We have Biju Damodaran, who is from Amazon. They're all people I know, and they all have this mindset of sharing, of giving, and that's why they are part of this. And even the people who are delivering the course for you, I'm myself involved. Shweta is there, who's going to be involved in every aspect with you. So we are not, nobody here is either sales or marketing. We are all design evangelists and practitioners. Raji, again, she has spent 20 years in the design space. Sachendra on the tech side is incredible. Arvind has been head of a dean of a design school. And my senior from NID, Alok, has been president, global president of IHDA, which is the Interaction Design Association. So we are some of the people who are there, who all are sort of very open kind of people, coming from a very, having done bold and creative things nationally and globally. So these are some of the people who will be giving you these challenges. We also want you to have access to a design book with all the tools and frameworks. You learn to work with tools through this program, and you work over weekends, and over the week you get to apply what you've learned, and our channels are open to give you feedback. It's a community. We don't want it to be a large cohort. We want to do this thoroughly with you. With this, I'm going to sort of turn to your questions and ask Shweta to pitch in, because I've been talking now for 1 hour. It's too much. We need to engage with you, and we must engage with you, and that's why we're here just now. So Shweta, do you want to take up some of the questions?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for the amazing presentation, Sonia. I think for the first two were answered already by you while we were running the presentation. There's a very interesting question by someone who is logged in with the name 1+5T. So we do not know the, we do not know your name, but I think it's a super interesting question. So it says, I'm an engineer and a salesman looking to become a creative thinker. Please guide me on which aspect of my profession design thinking can be applied, part one. Part two is, I have so far relied on consistency, accuracy, and keen observation to improve process. How can creative thinking design be applied to process improvement? Great question. It would be great if you can let us know of your name in the in the chat box. And I think you already have a very good mix of diverse profiles, which is being an engineer and a salesman. And in India, somehow, like all of us become an engineer before becoming what we want. So that automatically, being an engineer, automatically develops the cognitive and tangible side of you, and then being a salesman, you kind of get very close to how to like interact with people, how to become more human centric. So I think for you, something like this, some course like this is a great gateway for people who are trying to move from any non-design to design space. And when we say design here, we do not mean design as a skill set, but we mean design as a strategic mindset. Arvind, thanks Arvind for your name. So this question is by Arvind, and I think Arvind, this is a really good gateway for people to move into move from non-design to design phase, or also if they have design as a skill set already in one of the design spheres, because there are many design disciplines. This is a great program which will add a layer of strategic thinking ability and a design mindset on top of your existing skills. And that's why this program is, if you see, if it's the program is directed enough to ensure that you move in a direction that creates tangible outputs for you in terms of the project that you work on and also in your career. And it also is very capable of ensuring that different people with different skill sets move in different directions and where they want to be. So that's the beauty of the program. And to your second question, how can design be applied to your core skill set, which is improving process? I think design is more about designing solutions to a problem, and a solution can be a product, it could be a service, it could be a process, it could be a policy, it could be a community design. So design is pretty agnostic when it comes to problem solving, irrespective of what kind of solution that we design. And a lot of times, most of the times, the solution is a good combination of these things. So there's a great example of what I'm putting in the chat box. There's a great example of some frugal innovation that Sonia spoke about, how someone is optimizing their process of segregating fruits to put them in different price slabs, something that most of the supermarkets are kind of using all forms of technology, and someone is trying to solve it with the frugal innovation. So this is a kind of a process innovation, and yes, design can definitely be used, and it comes very handy irrespective of the kind of solution that you navigate into. So I also have shared the link of the course, which will tell you more about the program. But Sonia, would you like to add here?
Yeah, so what I wanted to say was, it's the difference between being someone who's doing one part of something to be able to understand the whole. So even design systems thinking, there was another question around that. So the role that you can play is much larger. You can be a product leader. So as a designer, I can be limited, or I can be a designpreneur. I can be somebody who can advise a minister on what to do. It's the scale of challenge I can grapple with. So it's really, it scales up. You can be solving a small problem, or you can be solving a larger problem. You can be an engineer, or you can be the product manager or an entrepreneur within the organization, saying, you know what, I can take this and I can make sure that I even create the market for it. So it's that shift in where you see yourself based on the ability that you can now have. I will also take up Amit's question. You want to understand design strategy. Okay, so what happens is, you can have business strategy, you can have business innovation, but design a strategy, or design-led businesses, design-led startups actually bring design to stage zero. They don't bring design at the end. It's not the last station before the product goes out to the market. It starts at the beginning. It starts from actually design research around the user, around human beings, to be able to create new markets and not just compete, to be able to create whole new segments and markets. So that's how design strategy works. And design strategy also means that you have actually seen through the entire system, from seeing what is the problem and what we are trying to solve, what is the kind of market we are trying to create, to finally being able to put it out there, to be able to create that market, to be able to grow that market, is the entire system which is human centric. That's when it is design strategy, and that's how it works.
Yeah, there's one question by Muthu Krishnan. Design thinking is something that can be learned from others, or it should be already built in within. So I think there's both aspect to it. There's some part of it like it's basically about creative thinking and divergent thinking. There's some part of it that already exists, but unfortunately, our systems that, like the education system that we have today, was not. I'm not talking about the ancient Indian Gurukul system, which was based on the mentor-mentee relationship. I'm talking about the one that was left back by the British. So it was not designed to create thinkers or leaders or foster creativity. It was designed on the foundations of conformity, compliance, and obedience to create high-quality, one-dimensional, cheap labor. So these systems freeze our neural networks. And we, by the time we are grown up, we kind of move into a space where we want to move in auto mode. We don't want to think a lot. And that's a zone that we get in. And just try to randomly rearrange the icons on your phone. You'll see that you'll get a little pissed off while using it, because now you have to think. Now you cannot run on auto mode. Just move your refrigerator from one place to another in your house. You'll end up going to the older place, because we love running in the auto mode. So somehow, to make sure that our brain keeps thinking, because what's happening is that your neural networks are freezing, and we are not forming enough neural network connections. So a part of creativity is already built in, but we have to do these daily activities like rearranging your home, rearranging your icons on your phone. These things helps us ensure that the creativity lives on. And our systems are somehow very against fueling creativity. So that part of it is built in, but we are conditioned. We have to quit that conditioning. And yes, when there is a framework, there's always a way. So basically, you moving from a non-design to being a designer is basically you changing the way you think, you changing the way you look at stuff, you changing the way right now at some point of time when you look at things at one perspective only. So you're changing the way you think. It's a mindset shift. And when you say strategic thinking, it's basically getting your thoughts broader. So a part of it is inbuilt in you. A part of it has to be developed by interacting with people who can think like that, by interacting with people who think in that zone.
I want to add what you say, Shweta. I think it's about, it's a bit like, did you know that there's something called the high place phenomenon? As human beings, we like I was mentioning to you earlier, that we are happiest when we are challenged. Similarly, we like to be in a higher place. That's why we like to fly. That's why even children have a fascination for flying. However, our fear, those who love us most put the most fear in us. You'll fall, you'll break a leg, this will happen, that will happen. And there's a fear in us. And when you lose that fear, and that is what you do as an entrepreneur, like that's why there are serial entrepreneurs. They've lost their fear. They know, it's like sportsmen, right? They take fear and failing and all of that in their stride. Because with a lot of practice, with the right tricks and frameworks and tools, and a lot of practice, you can systematically lose your fear. When you lose that fear, you actually love life, you love challenges, and you're happy to embrace them. And then work is no longer a chore. You need to drag yourself away from your work because it challenges you back. It's like playing a game. You enjoy it. You have to be careful not to get sucked in it. It's like if you're into gaming and you You forget to eat and you forget to do everything else. So now that's the only thing you need to watch out for. But people who do this kind of work, people who embrace challenges, who decide it's not because, oh, my boss told me to do this, so I'm doing it. It's because you took up a challenge. And that challenge you can take up as an entrepreneur, as an entrepreneur. You can understand the full challenge behind something that you've been asked to do. It could be a campaign. But have you thought about what's the impact of my campaign? I have worked for a short while in advertising and I thought, wow, these people are doing work to win awards. What are they doing the work for? Do they know the impact of the work that they're doing? And I left advertising for that. And I now, whenever I've actually created a new brand or a new format in retail, uh, a lot of you may have been to a central or a food hall or a food bazaar or a big bazaar. Each one of them, when we created them, we insisted on doing the communication ourselves. We didn't call it advertising. We wanted people to understand the thinking behind what we had created. So yes, design strategy also includes how you communicate and how you spread an idea. It's about that. It's how do I take this idea and I infuse it into people's minds? How do I create a movement? How do I create a new experience? It's scaling up the impact of what you're doing. And you can either self-disrupt now and do it, or you can sort of keep doing what you're asked to do. What we are challenging you is to self-disrupt and be part of this. Take on some of these days, work with us, and work with the mentors, and move forward in that way. Shweta, over to you.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty much the questions that we have. Almost all of them are answered. In case any one of you have a question, I would request you to please put it in the Q&A segment. Otherwise, I think there's one question about the course. So I'll just reiterate the USPs of the course. The two most important USPs would be that's designed and developed by industry experts, the ones that were introduced. Then there is a live project. So it's not like a pure academic project where you learn something and you're evaluated based on what you learn. But there's a course but there's a live project, the DARE, which is embedded throughout the project. So when you learn something, say research, you go back and then you implement it on a live project, and you are evaluated. Your evaluation is based on the outcome, your ability to create an outcome with what you have learned. So this simulation makes it as close as possible to a real life project, because that's how real life project work out. So that's the third USP. And the fourth one is the network that you get access to. So the moment you sign up for the program, you automatically become a part of the Design Bond community, which is again a huge network of designers from all different disciplines, and most of these are design leaders. There's a Design Bond playlist that I've shared in the chat box. I would request you all to just save it somewhere and then take a look at it later after the event. So this will give you a virtual tour of Design Bond and everything that happens here. There are many organizations like Microsoft, Accenture, and Amazon that have run their innovation events in collaboration with Design Bond. So they also become a part of our network. So yeah, that's pretty much about the USPs of the course. In case you have more questions, you can put it right into the Q&A segment, and we can take it up. Otherwise, I think we are done we are done with the session. Unless Sonia, you have something more to add as a closing note.
No, nothing really. Just stay in touch with us, and here you connect with us for anything that you may want to know. And stay creative is the only way to respond, and adapt, survive, and thrive, and stay happy and stay safe. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye-bye.